the objective is to talk about and discuss the distribution functions, mainly the commutative distribution function and the probability density function, PDF. We'll start with the commutative distribution function, or for short, they call it distribution function, or CDF. And we started last time, we stopped at the notation. We said that the notation here is a little bit tricky. So the F here, the F here refers to that this function is a CDF. It's a commutative function. It's a distribution function. And the subscript capital X is the random variable itself. So it might be capital F of X, capital F X, capital F Y. So Y in this case will be the random variable, and so on. And the number here is a number, or just a dummy variable. Okay, it can be X, it can be U, it can be V, it can be anything. It can be a number 1, 2, 5. So, and we started talking about the example of flipping a coin 3 times and counting the number of heads. And if we would like to find the probability, sorry, not the probability, the function fx of 2, in order to find this, we always go to the definition. What is the definition of fx of 2? It's the probability that the random variable x is less than or equal to 2. So this thing here is nothing but a probability function. It's a probability that the random variable x is less than or equal to 2. Now, in order to find this probability, we go to the corresponding event. When does x becomes less than or equal to 2? This happens when x equals to 0, or x equals to 1, or x equals to 2. And since x equal to 0 means 0 heads, x equal to 1 means 1 head, x equal to 2 means 2 heads. These are mutually exclusive events. Then the probability that x is less than or equal to 2 equals the summation of these 3 probabilities. And this gives you 7/8. Okay? What about fx of 0 يا شباب؟ ايش رايكم؟
1/8.
It's equal to the probability, always شباب, always write the definition. fx of 0 is the probability that x is less than or equal to 0. And this happens, x is less than or equal to 0 only when x equal to 0. There's no other value. And this is, as your friend correctly mentioned, it's 1/8. Okay? So always, Shabab, always use this definition. It helps you not to confuse things, especially when you have more complicated examples. Okay? Any question? Okay, so now let's talk about the function and how to plot it. So we know this is tossing 3 coins and watching the head, counting the number of heads. So we have x equal 0 to 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. These are the values that x can take. And these are the probabilities of these values. Probability of x equals 0, equal probability of x equals 3, equal 1/8, and so on. We have done this before. Now, in order to sketch the commutative distribution function, we need to be able to find its value at all different values of x. So in order to sketch fx of x versus x, we need to find values of this function for all values of x, right? To sketch. Okay, so in order to do this, let's just repeat the same exercise. What is fx of 0? It's the probability that x is less than or equal to 0, which is 1/8. We have done it already. Fx of 1, we have done it already. Oh, yeah, it's a similar case, sorry. It's fx of 1, which is probability that x is less than or equal to 1, which is equal to the summation of the subsequent events, which are x equal to 0 and x equal to 1. And since they are mutually exclusive, we sum them, it gives us half. Fx of 2, which is by definition the probability that x is less than or equal to 2, and we have done it above, it's 7/8. Fx of 3, which is the probability that x is less than or equal to 3, and we know that it's always x less than or equal to 3, so this is equal to the probability of s, right? Which is equal to 1. Because we know the corresponding event in the sample space x equals to x equals less than 3 is s. So what about fx of 4? ايش رايكم يا شباب؟
1.
It's 1. Again, it's probability of s, which is 1. What about fx? It's really على الخاص هذا على private chat. fx of minus 0.5 على private chat شباب. Send me over the private chat. What is the value of this? fx of minus 0.5. طيب في بعضكم كتب equal 1 over 8. في بعضكم كتب 5 وفي بعضكم كتب 0. اللي كتب 1 over 8 ليش يا شباب؟ What is f(x) of minus 5? It's a probability that x is less than or equal to minus 0.5. طيب, let's look at x. X can take values 0, 1, 2, 3 only. So what is the corresponding event in the sample space to x less than or equal to minus 0.5? هاي شباب, what is this corresponding?
0.
لا, the probability is 0. What is the corresponding event? The probability of 5, exactly, thank you. So x simply cannot be less than minus 0.5, and hence it's equal to the probability of 5, which is 0. Okay? واضحة يا شباب؟ So 1 over 8 is long, phi is long, phi is the corresponding event, not the probability. The probability cannot be equal to phi يا شباب. It's 0. طيب, أي سؤال؟ طيب الآن another question. What is fx? يا شباب طفوا الميكروفون الله يخليكم. What is fx of 1.5? ايش رايكم؟ يا شباب.
You said
Half 1 over 2.
Why?
Doctor,
تفضل.
you said
It's between 2 and 1.
probability.
طيب, اللي كان يسأل اللي قال دكتور ايش سؤالك؟
Did you say corresponding event or probability?
What is the fx of 1.5? هذا السؤال. In order to find this, we need to start with the definition. This is equal to the probability that x is less than or equal 1.5. تمام؟ الآن, once we write the definition, we find the corresponding event. What is the corresponding event? متى x less than or equal to 1.5 when x هاي شباب
at 0
equals
X
0
equal
or x
equal 1.
equal 1 exactly. So this is the corresponding event اللي تكلمنا عنه. And since these two events are mutually exclusive, we can write that this is equal to x equals 0, probability of x equals 0 plus probability of x equal 1, which is equal to 1 over 8 plus 3 over 8, as one of your friends mentioned, it's half. So the first step in order to find fx of a number is to start with the definition, always. The probability that x is less than this number. First step. Second step is to find the corresponding event to this x less than or equal this number. What is the corresponding event? And then calculate the probability of this corresponding event. Step number 3. واضح يا شباب؟ Any question? طيب, now in order, if we are able to find fx of small x at any number x, then we can plot this, right? Let's try to plot it. Now we are plotting here fx في هذا البلوت. fx of x versus x. So the y-axis is fx of x. The x-axis is this dummy variable x. And we start from minus infinity. What is fx of minus infinity?
0.
0, right? And it continues to be 0 until what? Until any number just less than x, less than 0. So fx of minus 0.0001 is equal to what?
0.
0, because x cannot take a value that is less than 0. The minimum is 0 في هذا المثال. And hence it's 0 until it touches 0. When it touches 0, sorry, خليني بس أسوي شيء غلط. So it's 0 here, مفتوحة عند الزيرو. When it touches 0, it becomes equal to what? 1 over
8.
8, right? And it continues to be 1 over 8 until anything very close to 1. fx2 of x of 0.99999. ايش رايكم؟ كم هذه؟
Still 1 over 8.
It's 1 over 8, لا؟ لأنه إلى الآن we did not include the other event, which is 1. So this is still 1 over 8. And hence, it's open at the 1. Until we touch 1, then it becomes half. The probability of fx of 1, هذا اللي جبناها تحت على اليسار, which is half. And it continues to be half until we reach 2. Before 2, it continues to be half. Once we touch 2, it becomes what? 7 over 8.
7.
Right?
Yes.
And it continues to be 7 over 8 until we approach 3. And it becomes 1 once we touch 3, and it continues to 1 forever. It cannot be more than 1. It cannot, this is the maximum. Why? Because at infinity, fx of infinity is what?
1.
0.
اللي قال 0 ليش؟ fx of infinity. It's the probability that x less than or equal infinity, صح؟
Yes.
طب معروف انه اي random variable, احنا random variable is defined over real line, right? Real numbers. معروف انه it has to be less than or equal to infinity. So this is always equal to 1, regardless of the random variable. واضحة؟ شباب؟ طيب لو
Yes,
تلاحظوا
clear.
الآن الجمبز اللي صارت هنا من الزيرو at 0 equals what? Equals the probability of 0. صح؟ شباب, do you see this? This is equal to الجمب اللي صار هنا. والجمب اللي صار هنا 3/8 equals للprobability of x equal 1. صح؟ So this is probability of x equals 0. This is probability x equal 1. And the third jump اللي صارت هنا equals the probability which is x equal 2. والlast jump equals the probability which is x equal 3. So you can see that the CDF function for discrete random variables is a staircase function. Staircase. كل step equals the probability of the number at that step. The step at 0 طول الستيب هذه equals the probability of x equals 0. طول الستيب هذه equals the probability of x equal 1. طول الستيب الثالثة equals the probability x equal 2. طول الستيب الأخيرة equals the probability x equal 3. واضح شباب؟
Yes, clear.
Yes.
تمام.
واضح.
طيب. So now if we understand how to plot a CDF, then we can go to talk about the properties of the CDF. أول property تكلمنا عنها معظمها ترى. بس let's go into يعني specific discussion. First property is fx at minus infinity is always equal to 0 regardless of the random variable. ليش؟ لأنه this is equal to the probability that x is less than or equal minus infinity, which cannot happen. Equals probability of 5. X is defined over the real line, so it cannot be less than or equal infinity. And hence, this is the impossible event. Hence, its probability of equals 0. The second property is the probability of, fx of infinity equals 1. And this is, as we just mentioned, it's x probability that x less than or equal infinity, which we know that this is always the case. ما في عندي random variable أكثر الفاليو حقه أكثر من infinity. ما في شيء اسمه أكثر من infinity. And this is equal to the certain event probability, which is 1. Because of that, now I can establish the fact that fx is always between 0 and 1. And we know that because this is equal to a probability function. صح? And we know that the probability function is always bounded between 0 and 1. It cannot be larger than 1. It cannot be less than 0. This is always. تمام? The fourth property is if x2 is larger than x1, x2 is larger than x1, then always fx of x2 is larger than fx of x1. Why? Because every time I increase x, what I'm doing exactly is I'm including more events. أول كان 0, بعدين أضفنا 1, بعدين أضفنا 1.5. Okay, 1.5 it stays equal. بعدين أضفنا 2. 2 الآن is a new event. فدائما as x increases, fx of x has to increase or stay the same. We call fx of x as a non-decreasing function. يا انه يزيد يا stay the same. مستحيل ينقص لانه كل مره x تزيد I am including more events or nothing happened, which means the probability is the same or the fx of x is the same. واضحه الفكره يا شباب؟ property number 4.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
اي سؤال عليها؟ property number 5. If I want to find the probability of x between two numbers, x1 and x2, then this is equal to fx of x2 minus fx of x1. So the probability that x lies between two numbers, x1 and x2, equals the function, the CDF at x2 minus the CDF at x1. So here, for example, the probability that x, طبعا هنا لاحظوا هنا ما في equality وهنا في equality. Just note this. Let me just put it in a different color. There's no equality and there's equality. في ال continuous random variables ما تفرق. في ال discrete random variables تفرق. لأنه في ال discrete random variables equality happens at the positive of the value. دائما fx of x positive equals fx of x, which means that x is right connected or connected from the right. لو تتذكروها في الكالكولس. Means that it's always open here and closed here. It's always open here and closed here. Always open here, closed at the number, and so on. زي ما شايفين في السكتش هذا. تمام؟ So it's always connected from the right. لاحظوا البلوت هذا. Right continuous function. الآن if I give you a function of x and I ask you whether this is a valid distribution function or not, you need to use property 1, 2, 4 and 6 to check. أول شيء تشيك هل الفانكشن has a zero value at minus infinity or not. هل الفانكشن has one value is equal to 1 at infinity or not. Is it is it non-decreasing function or not. function زي كذا هذا أعرف على طول is not a valid function. It's decreasing. So it has to be non-increasing. So it's a function fx of x that always starts from 0 and always ends at 1. اللي في النص عاد أي شيء يتغير لكن it has to be non-decreasing. يعني تخيلوا انتم كل البروبرتيز هذه الاربع properties can be looked at using this graph. So اي فانكشن يجي لك فانكشن مختلف عن البيهيفير هذا اعرف انه this is not a valid fx. طبعا اخر شيء اللي هي رقم 6 sorry, it has to be connected from the right. So it has to satisfy the right continuous property. So this is a valid PDF. This is not a valid PDF. Sorry, CDF. واضح يا شباب؟
Doctor, I have a question regarding the fifth property. Yeah. Regarding the equality sign, if we have a discrete CDF and the equality sign was on the left, will the formula be the same?
ايش قصدك الايكواليتي ساين كانت في الليفت؟
So we have x greater than or equal to x1.
Oh, larger than or equal to x1.
Yes.
طيب الآن أنت look at it from here. If يعني your question is if there is equality here.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, in this case, so basically you are asking here. فخلينا ناخذ المثال هذا. Probability that x, sorry. That's a good question. x between خلينا ناخذ أول واحدة 1 و2. no equality at 1, equality at 2. In this case, this is equal to كم يا شباب؟ It's equal to the probability that x equals، خلينا ناخذ 0 عشان بس يكون في كذا event. This is probability that x equals to 1 plus probability of x equal to 2, right? Which is كم؟ 3 اللي هو 6 على 8 صح؟ الآن probability that the same لكن I just include equality here. إيش رأيك؟ إيش اللي اختلف الآن؟
We will include the zero event.
Exactly, we will include the 0. So basically this equation becomes plus the probability that x equals x1. هذا اللي يتغير if equality is there. امسحها عشان الآن المثال يصير هذا عبارة عن نفس اللي هي the probability of x equals 0 plus the same probability of اللي هو خلينا ناخذها الرول نفسه f x of 2 sorry 2 minus f x of 1 of 0 sorry. Okay.
So fx of 2 minus fx of
خلينا نحلها
0.
خلينا نحلها. What is fx of 2?
3 over 8.
ممتاز. What is fx of 0?
1 over 8.
ممتاز. And what is px, probability of x equals 0?
1 over 8 also.
1 over 8. لا معليش fx of 2 كم كانت؟ fx of 2 ما هي 3 على 8.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It is 7 over 8. Yeah.
أيوة 7 over 8. So we have 1 over 8 plus 7 over 8 minus 1 over 8. They cancel each other and you end up with 7 over 8. Did I miss anything here? fx of 2 is 7 over 8. Yes. Probability of x less than between 0 and 2. It's a probability that x equal to 2 plus probability x equal to 1, which is how come في شيء غلط. If we write it as fx of 2 minus fx of 0, which is 7 over 8 minus. Am I missing something, Isabel?
About the first one.
إيش هي؟
Where x is between 2 less than or equal to and bigger than 0.
Yeah.
You wrote it
I think
differently because I think we should just subtract f of x of 2 minus f of x of 0. But you did it as in the probability of x equal 1 and probability of x equal 2, which is the same answer.
Yeah, هو المفروض كله يعطيني نفس الانسر.
Yeah.
يعني if I write it as هذه اللي هي خلينا بس ننظف المكان شوي. If I write it as fx of 2 minus fx of 0, this is 7 over 8 minus 1 over 8, which is 6 over 8, right?
Yeah.
صح? So
Yes.
this is okay. This is okay. الآن what I did here is okay, yeah, صح, okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
these are not equal. أنا ما أدري إيش اللي خلاني I have to equate them, صح. So this is okay, yeah, we are doing fine. So this is 6 over 8 أول واحدة اللي هي without equality. With equality it's 7 over 8. So it's different. Yeah, nothing is wrong. طيب شباب واضح discussion؟ في شيء not clear to you؟
واضح يعني.
طيب طيب الآن consider نفس experiment, tossing a coin 3 times, observing the number of hits, نفس الكلام. الآن let's write, الآن احنا we were able to find, to sketch fx of x, and we sketched it as here. Now we need to write it as a function also. You know, fx of x is a function at the end. It's a function of x. It's a function of the dummy variable x, small x, right? So we need to be able to write it in an analytical form. هذا sketch جميل يعطيك visual representation. خليك تتخيل كيف شكل كيف توزيع البروبابيلتي. لكن it's always good to know how to write it in an analytical form. You can see from this is a staircase function. And because it's a staircase function, it's a summation of series of shifted step functions. أول شيء تبدأ بزيرو، ما في شيء صح؟ Up to 0, you start by one step function at 0 اللي هو u of x. Okay? Multiplied by the probability of x equals 0. يعني length ارتفاع الستيب function at x equals 0 equals the probability of x equals 0. Plus another step function which is at u of x minus 1. ارتفاعها ايش؟ probability of x equals 0 x equal 1 هذه هي 3 over 8. And then plus a third step function which is u of x minus 2 located at 2. So هذه this is it. وهذه كانت تمام. and the length حقها كم كان؟ probability x equal to 2 plus the last step function which is at x equal 3 with the length of probability x equal 3. Okay, so it's always for discrete functions, fx of x is a stair step function that looks like this. It's a summation of shifted step functions at xi, which are the values of x, possible values. x1, x2, x3, xn, multiplied by the probability of every value xi. We can write for short, and we will do this from now on, that this as x, sorry, instead of writing probability of x, capital X equal xi, we can write it as the probability of xi for short. So the PDF, sorry, the CDF of a discrete random variable always looks like probably like this. Doesn't matter. Y of y. هذه y. يبدأ من 0 at minus infinity. يبدأ يزيد at x1, at x2, x3, x4, x5, sorry, not x, y's. Okay, so y1, y2, y3, y4, y5, and this is y. Okay, this is equal to 1, and this is equal to 0. We start at 0 always. واضح الشباب؟ So it looks always like this. Any question? No questions? Clear يا شباب؟ Yes.
Yes, clear.
طيب. The second function that is very important and very useful to us is what we call the density function. or in many textbooks they call it the probability density function, or PDF. So whenever you hear the word PDF, it means it's a density function. Whenever you hear the density function, it means it's a density function. So either we use the word density or PDF for short. Density function or PDF. They both carry the same meaning. Mathematically, the PDF is the derivative of the CDF. طبعا الآن حنتكلم إيش معناها physically إيش معنى ال density function. This is a very important function. And it's more خلينا نقول intuitive to understand إيش معناه. So mathematically, it's the derivative of fx of x. So خلينا نتكلم في discrete domain لما يكون discrete random variable. We know that the CDF looks like a summation of shifted step functions if the step function weighted by the probability that x equal xi. Okay? Now if I differentiate this with respect to x, to small x يعني, differentiating this, كأني differentiate ايش الفاريبل الوحيد اللي هو step function. Differentiating a step function gives you what? A delta function. So the staircase اللي تكلمنا عنه قبل كده اللي هو يبدأ من 0 بعدين خلينا نسويها ما هي equal بس it's okay. So this is x1, x2, x3, x4. Huh? Then the corresponding PDF, which is لو تلاحظوا هنا it's a small letter PDF indicating a PDF. It's a small letter, small f. Capital F is what يا شباب? CDF. Small f is the PDF, and the other notation continues the same. So the PDF of x looks like this. At x1 ايش عندي حيكون؟ At x2 ايش رايكم؟ شباب what do I have at these values?
Delta function.
أول delta equals to what? To the probability that x, the probability of, خلينا نكتبها small. This is the probability of x1. ثاني delta ممكن تكون أكبر شوي. It's probability of x2. ثالث delta ممكن تكون صغيرة شوية. It's the probability of x3. رابع delta ممكن أصغر واحدة من الرسم. It's probability of x4. So the CDF for discrete random variables looks like staircase function. For discrete random variables, the PDF looks like fingers or deltas, shifted deltas. If the delta has a weight, has a length of the probability of that number. Okay? What does this function tell you? لما تشوفوه كده ايش يعطيك شباب؟
The probability of each of the events.
Yeah, يعطيني probability of the value, the probability that x equals every value, صح؟ ممتاز. ويعطيني شيء له علاقة بالدنسيتي. يعطيني density functions in general. لما تقول mass density function، ايش يعني mass density function في الفيزيكس؟ أحد فيكم يتذكر ايش يعني mass density function؟
Mass over the volume.
Yeah, لا هذا الماس over the value mass density. Mass density function gives you how is the mass, total mass distributed over the body, the volume. يعني مثلا خلينا نقول السيارة ممكن مثلا معظم الماس في المقدمة عند الانجن، الماس الأقل في الوسط والخلف لأنه كلها كراسي وأشياء خفيفة، بينما الانجن هو فthis density function tells you how is this total mass distributed among the volume of the body, صح؟ هنا this gives you how is this total probability of 1 distributed among the different values of x. Values of x. Okay? How is this total probability of 1? Total probability. واضح شباب؟ And because of that we call it a density function. فأنت أول ما just right when you see a density function you know what are the values that are more probable than others. يعني مثلا هنا في المثال هذا you can clearly see that x equal 4 has much lower probability than x equal 2. You can clearly see that the random variable is concentrated أكثر في المنطقة هذه at x1 and x2 more than it's at x3 and x4. لأنه معظم البروبابيلتي هنا. Right? So you can see, visualize directly how is this total probability distributed among the different values of x. Okay? شباب واضح؟
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's take some examples. This is the example of the tossing a coin 3 times and counting the number of hits. We know the CDF. هذا الCDF اللي هي F capital Fx of x. This is the PDF. When you differentiate the CDF, you get the series of deltas. Now you can see that among this total probability of 1, you can see that the random variable is distributed, is mainly focused at 2 and 1. Most of the values are 2 and 1. So you can clearly see that what are the most probable events to happen, the most probable values of x. Okay? Similarly, this is another function. Malo, yeah, doesn't matter. You can see from here, the PDF looks like this. So simply you can see at every step you have a delta. At every step you have a delta. At every step you have a delta. And the length of the delta equals the length of the step. And the total probability should equal always to 1. So now this tells you that most of the probability may be as concentrated around these two values. Okay? One example of continuous random variable is spinning a wheel. Spinning a wheel والwheel مرقمة between A and B. Okay? So you can stop at any number, at any real number between A and B. In this case, it is equally likely that you stop at any number. Okay? It's equally likely that you stop at any number. هذا نسميه uniformly distributed. ما في أي شيء يخلي الويل يوقف في المنطقة هذه أكثر من المنطقة هذه. They are equally likely. And because of that, the CDF looks like linearly increasing by increasing x. So as x increases, أول شيء هي 0. Then the probability that x less than A is 0. And it's 1 after B because the probability that x is larger than B is always 1. And in between, it increases linearly. لأنه كل مرة you include more x between A and B, the probability increases. يعني لما أقول لك إنه what is the probability that x stops less than هذا الرقم. It's equal to the area of the first quarter divided by the total. صح ولا لا؟ اللي هو ربع. What about the probability that it stops at this number? Not it stops. The probability that it stops at this number or before. اللي هو probability that x is equal to this number or less. It's half, right? So it keeps increasing linearly until it reaches 1, until it reaches this number again. And if you differentiate this CDF, you get the uniform اللي هو equally likely you can get any number between A and B. أي سؤال يا شباب؟ طيب, the last thing that I would like to talk about is the properties of the density function. أول شيء, if you differentiate a non-decreasing function, إيش رأيكم? The derivative function will be what? Always, yes,
greater than or
greater than or equal to 0. Exactly. Thank you. It's always a non-negative function. And because of that, and because طبعا, this is mathematically, logically, and physically, it's a density function. Density cannot be, never. It can be a negative function. It's a density. هذا رقم واحد. Number 2, we said that the density function gives you how is this total probability of 1 distributed among the different values of the random variable. And because of that, if you integrate, if you sum this function density over all the values of x, you get 1. Because the total probability is equal to 1. Okay? واضحة هذه؟ مهمة ترى.
yes.
Third property, we said that the density function is a derivative of the distribution function, which makes the distribution function is the integral from -infinity to x of the density function. Okay? And because of that, fx of infinity is 1. هذا اللي تكلمنا عنها قبل كده لو تتذكروا. Okay? Now, if I would like to find the probability that x lies between x1 and x2, again, watch the equality and no equality. This is, we have established already that this is equal to fx of x2 minus fx of x1, which is equal to the integral from -infinity to x2 minus the integral from -infinity to x1, using this property number 3. And because of that, you can simplify this as the integral of fx of x from x1 to x2. Now, properties 1 and 2, هذول الاثنين, can be used to prove a certain function is a density function or not. أول شيء, it has to be a positive function. ثاني شيء, it has to integrate to 1. يعني مثلا function like this is not a valid function. لأنه negative. It has to be always positive, and the area equals to 1. It has to be. Area under the curve equals to 1. أي أسئلة يا شباب؟
Doctor, I have a question.
تفضل.
Okay.
Just before that, a reminder that we will have a quiz إن شاء الله next Sunday. قبل ما أنسى, نسيت أقول هذه. Quiz about chapter 1 on next Sunday إن شاء الله. تفضل سؤالك.
Chapter 1 as a whole.
Chapter 1 as a whole, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.